Hi, my name is Tony Lee and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Shping, and I'm broadcasting live from our office in sunny Melbourne today. I'm pleased to be joined by Founder and CEO of Everledger, Leanne Kemp. Hello, Leanne.
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, very well, thank you, very well. Leanne, it sounds like you've had a busy week of travelling. What have the conditions been like in your neck of the woods?
Well, I'm in sunny Queensland, so perfect one day, beautiful the next, or is it the other way around? Either way, always good to get to the end of the Friday with a beer in hand.
Fantastic. Good way to end the week, definitely. So, Leanne, it's always a delight to meet an innovator. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background? How did you come to be the CEO and founder of Everledger?
Sure. So I guess my story began in the mid-90s, around 1996, where I started exploring the use of RFID, so radio frequency identification, for supply chain traceability. And I've always been curious about emerging technologies and how that might be applied to supply chains. And I guess if we wind forward to today, 25 years later, we're starting to see some really interesting emerging technologies of blockchain and smart contracts, machine vision, RFID and even barcoding, all being a combination set of technologies that can provide transparency to opaque markets. So, I'm a software engineer. I actually studied commerce, believe it or not, but I didn't find adding up numbers up very exciting. So I chose the pathway of binary. How can we use ones and zeros? And next thing you know, Everledger began. So we began in the heart of London in April 2015 with a passion for not just only bringing together these exponential technologies, but to apply them to opaque markets to bring transparency to not just only the retail outlet, but enable the consumer to make a full consciousness of mind decision about what it is that they're purchasing. And we started with diamonds. So we have about 2.2 million diamonds on the blockchain now, and largely I think it's suffice to say we've satisfied the curiosity in the technology, and we're starting to see a 500-year-old industry embrace this technology to be able to provide transparency to their consumers.
Fantastic, fantastic. So provenance is a word that is very common in your repertoire. It's also quite common in the Shping language as well. Can you tell me why do you think it's actually important for consumers to know the origin of products before they purchase?
Well, look, I think it's a combination of a number of reasons. I think largely the human race and business, it's been a race to the bottom. We've started to try and understand where do we source product, how do we get it cheaper, how do we get it to the market faster, and ultimately it's been a fight for margin. And that race to the bottom has given us industrialization in supply chains and cheaper pricing, and even sort of rapid fashions where shirts are made for $1 and we wear it twice and we throw it out. But I guess now, on the backdrop of 25 years or even 50 years of this, we've started to realise globally that we have a problem. We have a problem in the world when it comes to authenticity and actually the footprint that we're leaving behind in terms of sustainability. So I guess, I don't like to always point to the millennials, but the reality is this generation, it probably has an awareness of what the impact is. The beaches covered in microbeads or plastic in the world, and we're starting to really have measure around where the impacts are seen, whether that be in concerns of deforestation, whether that be in counterfeit and fake products like baby milk that's causing real concerns at a health level, or whether it's being blood diamonds. And so I think provenance comes into play, and it's very simple. It's a beautiful French word, but it means where is it, who has it, where did it come from? And I think the combination of that with these new technologies is the most important step that we can make as a human race, rather than just thinking about cheaper, better, faster.
It's no wonder we fell for you so hard. I mean, we have such similar values and similar sort of passions in ensuring that consumers are informed about the choices that they make at point of sale. It's very, very important. But I have a particular interest in the work that you do, particularly in your 2.2 million diamonds, putting 2.2 million diamonds on the public ledger to avoid blood diamonds. Now, where did this passion for? I know that Everledger originated with this kind of concept. Where did that passion come from?
Look, I think we're building the next generation technology is for, firstly, for digital vault of the future, but also an ethical trade platform. And whenever you're starting a startup in the space of emerging tech, and you're so early in nascent technology, you have to start with a niche. So we just picked a bloody big niche. Diamonds are mined at 15 billion, and by the time they hit the retail network, not set in a ring, it's 80 billion. Right. But Everledger started with diamonds, and Amazon started with books, and we knew that if we were able to do that successfully in a registry and enable that distributed trust across that network to be proven, then we knew that we could go further. And so we have done that work further. We've moved into coloured gemstones, rubies and sapphires and emeralds.
Wow.
And then, of course, into the items of value, wine, watches, even collectible cars, right? It's not all about a girl's best friend. Let's see if we can do a boy's best friend too.
Oh, that's amazing. So you touched upon the fact that you're obviously looking at more high-value assets. What is in your pipeline in terms of some of that material? You touched upon some of them, but... So
we really did look at sort of high-value assets and where authenticity can bear reason to value, for the supply chain. But we know and understand that there are other consumable products in the market, whether that be baby food or even out to sort of PET or bottled water, where barcoding is the background sort of construct, or GS1, kind of identification methods, serialized identification methods. We've been really empowered and curious about the marriage of identity. So, but not just about identity of people, the identity of objects. So how can we look forensically at an object, whether that be using kind of a similar technology like facial recognition? Can we use facial recognition for diamonds? Is there such a thing? Could it actually, work? Is there a DNA mapping of a diamond? And so we go a little bit deeper when it comes to the forensic mapping of objects. And of course, there is going to be a balance of material science and a material cost to that. So if you talk about applying this technology to items that are in the thousands, not in the dollars or the cents, then of course there's an economic reasoning behind that.
That's fascinating. So we've had the pleasure of working with some of your team. Can you tell me a little bit more about some of the expansion plans that you have for that team? I mean, I understand that you did come from Australia. You're an Australian, right? And you're an expat and now you're in London.
Well, great phone. So we have 5 operational centres in the world with Everledger: Australia, Singapore, India, London and New York, and I have 2 personal residences. So one, of course, in the UK and one here in Brisbane. And so I do spend a lot of my time running between our operations, but also we have far-reaching customers in areas of Africa, of course, with diamonds, Canada, and Hong Kong, mainland China, and Israel. So I do spend a lot of my time travelling. I guess we care about, not just about the supply chains of today, but I'm hugely moved by the global commons, the responsibility that we have around the protection of Mother Earth's assets. And of course, diamonds is one of those. But so too are minerals, so conflict minerals, whether that be gold, platinum, palladium. And I think if you were to wind forward 5 years from today, where would we be? We would like to see that Everledger as the rails can underpin some of those more challenging supply chains of minor minerals or conflict minerals.
Wow, okay. So recently we've announced a partnership to build the world's first GS1 EPCIS standard track and trace platform for product information using the blockchain. For the audiences at home who are going to watch this, can you tell me what that means for the future?
So what that means for the future, so I guess what it means for Shping and Everledger in the future, let's look at sort of selfishly our own future.
Sure.
I think we're bringing together some of the brightest minds in the space to enable this as a construct, to not only be seen by the world, but to be used by the world. And it's very clear that beyond sort of high-value items or items that require a forensic level, there are also a number of items in the space that are serialized through GS1. And the fact that they're sort of a leading international standard, I think it's sensible that any emerging technology like blockchain or like provenance-based supply chain should really adhere to international standards. So I think that, how we can build the rails, which is really a part of the responsibility of Everledger and the kind of core blockchain team, for companies like Shping to advance at an application level, to enrich that sort of data of truth or the single source of truth out to consumers and retailers will be hugely valuable, not only to the consumer or those that are talking about maybe potentially purchasing the product or ingesting the product, but even to retailers, like to know their supplier and know their supplier's supplier and have the ability to understand recall processes at the click of a button is it's missing in the world, and it really doesn't make sense why it is. I mean, I guess the same question was asked of ourselves when, before Facebook was around. Like, of course, social media makes sense. Of course, having digital enablement of relationships makes sense. Why doesn't it exist? Well, it's just because someone didn't wake up and do it. So we woke up in 2014 and started doing it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's always a risk about going first. And I think that in many ways people sort of look to innovators to be first, but also be right. What's your philosophy on sort of success and how you build success? I mean, can you really be always on, always constantly successful, or is this, are we talking about a fail fast kind of sort of culture that you're building? Do you encourage that kind of sort of behavior?
I think it's too easy to fail fast. I think that certainly you can raise early and fail fast and still sleep well at night. So we don't necessarily sort of buy into that. We take a very sort of pragmatic approach to understanding the challenge or the problem that we're solving within industry, and we co-evolve product with industry to enable that solution set to be built. I think that being first to market is one thing, but we feel like we just want to be first to the start line, right? Rather than just, So when we were one of the first in the world, and we were quite early, I just didn't realize at that time that we were all about sprinting the marathon. And we knew that that was something that we needed to do, but we were really sprinting to the start line. So we're actually, I don't even feel like we're in the race today. I feel like we're only just getting started.
And certainly, I mean, culture, society is still playing catch up as well. Again, brand new technology, new paradigms that we need to introduce. How have you found being able to even communicate your story? How has that been? Has that been challenging, or has it been quite easy?
I think that in 2014 and 2015, there are a number of really bright entrepreneur startups that came into the market. And more so than ever, we probably attracted the talent of insanely talented engineers that really understood the concepts of the white paper and were able to talk at the very sort of top level of cryptography and what this might mean. But there wasn't really anyone who could message the challenge, the purpose, and the how and the why together in the message. And I think if there was to be one thing that Everledger did quite well, is we could show a real use case, a real application, and an understanding of not just why this is important, but how we could go about building this. And that message was easily digested within the market, but more importantly, it actually caused us to think about ourselves as the custodian of this technology, and even maybe the custodian of provenance and supply chain transparency. And so once we took that burden, and it is quite a burden upon ourselves, we invested a lot of money in ensuring that we could educate ourselves deeply on the technical constructs, but also educate the market or the industry on why this matters and how this is going to evolve. So that they can not just say, that's a great, here's like a shining object, let's go pick this up, but actually give them enough education, enough tooling for them to be able to grow on top of that platform. Standing on the shoulders of giants is some of the best things that you can do to help elevate your view. And I think that we entered in the market at a time that we gladly wanted to share all of our enriched knowledge with the industry and allow them to go and do what they do best. Because certainly one of the most surprising things for us has been that we've had sort of these unintended consequences of our genius. And some of these ways upon which the industry is using our technology, I would never have been able to think of. And yet, that's because we weren't close enough to understanding what the problem was for them in their environment. But we knew and understood how we could bring this tooling together so that they could leverage out.
Fantastic. So one of the common questions that we always get is like, through our partnership, we're obviously going to be using your Hyperledger Fabric blockchain technology. Why are we? So the question's often asked of us, why Hyperledger? Why that particular technology? Do you have any insight into that?
So certainly we are not only a Hyperledger-enabled company. We have a far reach in terms of our technical tool bag. But certainly when we began sort of thinking and seeing the work that we were doing in the market, I mean, Ethereum was test network.
Yeah.
There was Homestead wasn't even thought of. But I think more so than ever, the strength of applications in the space are really riding on open source contribution. And some of certainly the licensing involved in Hyperledger is quite friendly in terms of its licensing around open source. And you can't deny the members of Hyperledger and that open source construction, particularly the Linux Foundation. And so when you start to see and understand sort of the enterprise level support that's happening, it's clear that the quality upon which that baseline foundation is being built thoughtfully and is being built ready for an enterprise level, and that's the world for us. We're sitting with some of the largest brands in the space. We work with financial services, banks, and insurers, and of course, there's an inherent trust. But beyond that, there's also a requirement to understand that these companies already have significant investment in infrastructure, and that infrastructure resides on things of with an IBM badge or Intel, and of course, you need to ensure that there's compatibility here, and that there's scalability. And I think that largely comes from those that are aligned within the market. And it's very clear Intel is aligned, Cisco, IBM, etc., all part of the open source movement with Hyperledger.
That's fantastic. So I wanted to ask you, Everledger is taking its first step into the mass consumer retail segment through the integration and a partnership with Shping. It's an exciting step for both of us. Let's not deny it. What do you hope to see out of this relationship? How can we? What can we look forward to at Shping?
So the most exciting thing for me is the fact that we've come together and we've recognised that if we begin to take the red wire, blue wire, and tie the two together, then maybe the light bulb will turn on, and it's going to be more than just a moment of brilliance. I think that the fact that we've been able to bring together on the tail end of the partnership a real focus around an international sort of standards approach to identity of consumer market product is actually a first in the world at this point in time. And what I was delighted, I mean, we see a lot of ICOs in the space, and believe me, I've had a lot of phone calls saying, surely let's do an ICO, we could raise a lot of money. But it's not necessarily about the money. It's actually about the credibility. And it's about ensuring that, some of these ICOs that are coming into the space, I believe they're coming in too early with a white paper or a short paper that really has very little construct that sits beneath that. And Shping and the team had that already in place. And what I was really pleased about was the fact that product was built, and it was purely a thought mechanism of saying ICO is a method of us to be able to fund, to leverage the hard work that's already been done. And the same approach occurs with Everledger. So that's why I think, there is a certain set of work that's going on in the ICO space, but how do you know if what you're investing in or tokenizing, how do you know that it's real in terms of being an object? And how do you know that you're not going to disappear in terms of companies? And I think it's safe to say that both Everledger and Shping, individually and combined, are certainly going to be here today, tomorrow, and well into the future.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, I'm gonna cut the interview short right now, but I'm going to get married in later this year, and I'm looking forward to the future case whereby we can go into a Tiffany's and scan a diamond ring and determine where its provenance actually is. I'm really looking forward to that, and I can't wait to sort of see that reality happening. Do you have any final thoughts about sort of of Shping and the future with us, and anything you might want to add before we close up?
So I don't think I'll have to wait till the end of the year to make that.
Yes.
To make that. Sorry about that. I think it'll come to as they say, it'll come to a house right near you soon.
No, good.
I'm delighted. I'm purely delighted. Beyond actually the concept of what the value is between Shping and Everledger and what we're doing for the world, I'm actually more excited about the synergies and the people and the culture and the hard-working, really like Aussie sort of yakka that's going on in the background of the two companies. And I think that beyond just saying watch this space, I think I should be saying to the audience, get your phones ready, because it's all about to change.
I like that. I really like that. Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure talking to you today.
My pleasure. Now I'm going back to my beer.
Yeah, and so you should. Thank you very much, Leanne.